Hey guys, Devin here from American Aquarium. Thank you so much for tuning in to this live video. If you don't know who I am here at American Aquarium, I guess you call me the box boy. No, I'm just kidding. My role here really is social outreach and research. I've been working for American Aquarium for 10 years and then been mentored by Carl Strohmeyer, who has been in the industry for 45 years, taking the professional experience and then putting it online. So I get the honor of being able to shed this information to you guys and hopefully help you out in some way. So today we're going to be talking about what balances in an aquarium. I don't know if you guys have a freshwater or a saltwater aquarium, but this does apply to both. And I guess we can ask ourselves, like, what does even balance mean? I think that term's becoming more common in the hobby. For us, I guess what we'd say is that it's stable, as in that the health of the aquarium is good long term, and the disease of the fish, of the overall aquarium, is less. So if we can have that, we have an overall successful, balanced aquarium, and that's what we would call healthy, sustainable balance. I do want to go into this idea that our aquariums are open systems versus closed systems. If you guys haven't heard me say this before, so aquariums, they're a body of water that are recycling the water over and over, whereas out in nature, from rivers, down streams, down to the ocean, there's an open system process where the water is running over these rocks and actually providing an electrical charge. And that's the big difference between our closed system aquarium and an open system. And that's why disease out in nature would be much less and much more common in the aquarium. So this idea of the electrical charge in the aquarium, this can be measured in millivolts, and increasing millivolts, a positive MV millivolt, would be on the oxidization side of the balance. The negative millivolt would be on the reducing side, and this has been proven for best boosting immunity for fish. And this is ultimately what happens. What happens in our aquarium is ultimately that we have far more of that positive oxidization and not having so much of the reduction, just like out in nature. So usually I like to promote aquariums that we come at it with, that we want some oxidization, but we also want to focus on having extra reduction, because that's usually the thing that's lacking in the aquarium. So the way this looks for a freshwater aquarium, we see this in the KH reading. We see this in the GH reading. The GH reading is those electrolytes. What we try to do is provide those electrolytes by supplementing the GH. And then for a saltwater aquarium, it's an interesting dynamic. They call it ionically balanced. I guess that'd be the same thing for freshwater as well. But there's something about sodium chloride that drives out the other minerals, calcium, potassium, magnesium. So in our closed system, we actually end up with a higher amount of sodium and not ionically balanced, as close to nature as possible. So there are some methods to also the saltwater aquarium, using a quality salt and then using a dosing method that has been proven to keep more in ionic balance. For our freshwater aquarium, it's mostly that we try to supplement that GH. I think one of the bigger things that people will say is, well, why do we need to supplement these things? Why don't we just do a water change, and that should be good enough? I think the standpoint that we've been fortunate enough to find out by being able to keep hundreds of aquariums and then kind of adjusting the variables to see how things go is actually just having a quality water change, but also supplementing these have proven to be best. We've tried it both ways, and then just long term the health of fish was best with doing the water change, but then also supplementing these and keeping the idea of an ionic balance in check. If we can keep this idea from the beginning, if we can keep this idea from the beginning, it gives us this mindset that everything that we're putting into the aquarium can have an overall effect on the balance, and we just consider everything that we're doing to it and what we're putting into it mainly. Everything that we put into an aquarium is on that oxidative side, on the oxidative, positive millivole. Hey John, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. So if we know we need to supplement those reducers, we can do that. And okay, so for a water change too, I will say that we get into a bad habit that sometimes we want to remove far more water than what we need to. And the overall idea for the aquarium for a balance or stability is that we're talking long term and that we are creating an ecosystem. So best is that over time this ecosystem would evolve and we'd be able to do far less to it. So the general rule of thumb is that we don't want to do a water change, say, over 25%. The 25%, anything over 25% allows for a shift in a variable. The source that we get our water from is changing. It can change year from year. And temperature is another big one. So if we're doing massive water changes, it has an overall effect on that stability as well. And actually, we've ran some tests here, and we've shown actually how much oxygenation we've been able to pull out of water, even with doing a larger water change than we advise, compared to if we could just dose those minerals that we were talking about, or on the saltwater side, using the proper dosing method to keep those in an ionic balance. It's far more effective in actually combating that oxidative side of the equation. So we usually promote lower water changes, more. If I guess you imagine it on a graph, if you're doing a 50% water change, even if it's similar water chemistry, it's going to be a greater swing. So if we could do less over time, and actually there's people that I think can safely say that they wouldn't need to do a water change as long as some other parameters are in check and that we're supplementing the things that are wearing away, we wouldn't even have to do a water change. So less becomes more, and does play to the overall balance of the aquarium long term. Next, I'll talk about filters and circulation. Of course, I think everybody would know is that a filter is going to be used to remove toxins from the water, and having different types of filtration that remove the toxic ammonia and ammonia, nitrites, and even nitrates. Those first two are going to be from one filtration type, and the nitrate control from a different biological filtration type. But overall, if we can have filters that ultimately as well are reducing the oxidative potential on the aquarium, stronger acid is going to have much more effect than a less acid, so from ammonia to nitrate. So the filter is going to be removing the toxins, and then it's also going to be providing flow, which flow becomes overall important for the oxygenation to the water. So there's a relationship with the water with how it's touching air, and that gas exchange is happening, and the more movement that we have, it's going to lead to greater oxygenation. And a big part of this redox balance is getting plenty of oxygen. A lot of people go, oh, oxygen's given, but I can't even tell you how many times the flow slows down in the aquarium from buildup, or a filter turns off, or for whatever reason, flow will start to diminish over time. So we do need to be aware that we do need that oxygen, and it becomes an important part of the equation. It is an oxidizer itself, but it's the important part of the oxidization process. So when I'm saying this balance, I'm not saying that oxidizers are bad and that reducers are good, or that we need 100% reduction. I'm saying that we need a balance. We need to know the good ones, and then not overdo the bad ones, and then remember that we need those reducers as well. So oxygen becomes very important, and always just keeping an eye on it is best for long-term health. I'll go into this one. It's UV sterilizers. A lot of people will think that the UV sterilizer is just good for clarification, and higher level education is now showing that it actually provides disease resistance as well. So it's doing two things. It's eliminating bacteria and virus and parasites in the aquarium by zapping them. Granted that we actually have true sterilization, but it's also eliminating those oxidizers to, if we don't have the oxidizer in the aquarium, or that we're eliminating it from the beginning, the fish is not having to combat it. So if we're constantly eliminating it, then there's not that constant wear on the fish's immunity, if that makes sense. And the UV sterilizer goes a long way. It's very comparable to dosing those electrolyte minerals. It has a little bit different process, but proper husbandry and then dosing those minerals are great within themselves. But then having that UV sterilizer in tests showed to just be even that much better for longer health. If you guys are wondering, well, how do you measure this health? Common way was keeping those mini aquariums that I was talking about, which led to being able to adjust a variable on each one and see the difference and then note it. But we were also using fish that had shorter lifespans, so then it's something that we can measure. You know, these fish that are just due to live for a couple years or a few years, it's clear to see the difference in disease resistance in them because the time frame is much shorter. So using a lot of those type of fish gave a clear picture. Okay, when we use this variable, it provided a positive benefit, and then if this other variable, okay, we eliminate that and know not to do that. So it was easy to see with just so many applications. So every time I keep saying we've seen it better long term, that's what I'm referring to, and is all that experience of just setting up the tests and running them. Parameters obviously are an important one to balance, and when I guess I'm thinking about this electrical charge, I'll mention it. For freshwater, we want to worry about our KH, GH, pH. Our KH is going to stabilize our pH. A lot of people will try to chase down a pH thinking it's the best for the fish, but if we actually just have a higher KH and stabilizing that pH, the fish can just adjust to that. And most of the time when they're coming from different sources like the wholesale or other people's aquariums, they're having to adjust to a different pH as well. So just having a stable pH is best, and if you have a fluctuating pH, it's shown to just have a hard effect on the fish's osmoregulation too. So those three, the KH, pH, GH. The GH I mentioned a little bit ago, that's the electrolyte mineral that we see. AAP, we've always been promoting the Wonder Shell for this, being a slow dissolver, and it's that electrolyte mineral that's combating those oxidizers. And even with softer water fish, we can still be dosing the GH and the KH. I should say just GH, but just knowing that we're dosing it for the electrical charge benefit, not necessarily to increase the hardness of the water benefit. For saltwater, it's calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium chloride. And then if you guys want some more information on the science a little bit above how I can explain it, but it's something about to do with the sodium chloride forcing out the ionic charge of other elements. We don't see this problem in the ocean, but we do see it in the aquarium. So definitely looking into how to dose those minerals. I think the hobby right now is using the 2-part method. There is a 3-part method, which includes those trace minerals, and the trace minerals are what help that ionic balance. It's called the balling method, and I definitely think it's gaining traction in the hobby. So look out for those parameters. I'll talk about food and feeding. So the food that we throw into our aquarium, that's going to add to the overall oxygenation of the electrical charge. So we can come at this at the angle of, okay, we need food that is going to be naturally more on the reducing side to begin with, and then also the food that the fish are eating are not passing that as waste, so higher digestibility. And that just comes down to the quality source of ingredients. We definitely have recommendations here on quality sources of food, but so just keep in mind you want quality food. We don't want to be overfeeding that food. Fish can go a lot longer than people think. I hear often I'm feeding 1-3 times a day, and you can definitely do that. If you have a quality food, the benefit to that too is it's got lower amounts of energy, so you can technically give them more. If you're doing a lower quality food, it'll have higher energy. So if you are doing if you're feeding higher amounts, it's exponential on the way that it's affecting the fish and the aquarium. So, I actually I feed once a day here. I don't know if there's a correct answer to just blanket statements of how much you need to feed for every fish. But don't be afraid that if you don't have to feed your fish, say like if you're going out of town, it's not going to be the end of the world. If you guys are looking to know what makes a quality food, look into quality proteins first. So if it's a carnivore fish, that would be menhaden, salmon, krill, and having the whole meal is best. If it says parts, that probably means that it's just the leftovers. The process of how food is made is quite amazing. They're going to take agricultural fish, so the fish that we eat, they're going to strip it of all the things that are good, so the things that we want to eat. They're going to take the vitamin, they're going to take the fish oil and squeeze it out and make that into supplements, and then they're going to give the rest to something like fish food. So finding something that actually is giving us the whole ingredients, something that we'd want to eat, is best. If a food is saying that it has to supplement something, if it gives a bunch of vitamins and minerals, hey Hio, it's nice for joining me, thank you. So having the supplemented minerals and everything on there, it is good that these are being supplemented in, but having just a quality source that already have these, that don't have to be supplemented in, is best. And these are higher digestible foods as well. For a herbivore fish, a quality plant protein would be something. First of all, we want to look for terrestrial plants. We want to look for aquatic plants. I'm not saying that right. We want to be looking for a protein source that's more from an aquatic source. That's what the fish will be used to. I guess what I'm saying is, like, sometimes fish food will be supplemented with like wheat or potato or whatever else is in there, and that's just not normally something. That's a terrestrial plant, and that's just not normally something they're getting. So if you're looking for a high protein herbivore diet, look for plant matter that's more aquatic. Spirulina is definitely one that we promote here. It's been proven for helping with disease resistance, and you want to find something that's got about 20%. It's got spirulina in one of the main ingredients. Having spirulina down at the bottom really doesn't count. I'll go into what to look for if we think that our aquarium is out of balance. I think we could look at the fish and then also something like the plants or corals. They will tell us ultimately how everything's going based on their health. For the fish, I think we would see more withdrawn or more erratic type behavior. So they should be pretty social creatures, coming to the glass, slowly swimming. But if there's an unusual, like it's a schooling fish, it's always out, but now it's behind something, it's not wanting to come out, those would be first signs to want to look into, okay, what's either wrong with the fish or what's going on with the aquarium. And just run through your head if you're making sure that you're crossing all your T's and dotting your I's. Erratic is another behavior where, like, when you turn on your light and all of a sudden it crashes and everything, it runs and scurries away. those are the first real signs before we see deterioration or another illness like fungus. So something to look into. Other things to consider would be bio-load, just considering what we stock in the tank, too high, too amount for the amount of water that we have. And when I'm saying bio-load, I'm talking about the total amount of fish and the total amount of actually anything living in the aquarium, and really anything that we're now putting into the aquarium. We want to not have too much for definitely the filtration that we have. If we do want to have higher bio-loads, we do need higher biofiltration. So I'm not saying that you can't get away with it, but it's just another factor that can ultimately end up affecting the overall balance, because say we have more fish and now we're feeding more, that's a greater amount of swing on that electrical charge. And lastly, I guess I'll finish with, there is something about too much care. The idea of the aquarium is that we want to balance the ecosystem over time, and in the beginning we might be doing a lot more things to it, getting it set up, constantly watching it and adjusting things and doing our regular maintenance. But we should get to a point, have it be a goal that we can be more hands-off on this ecosystem. If we're doing it right, if it's been set up correctly and it's thriving, as in it's growing, it should be getting to a point where it can kind of take care of itself. And so then we can do a lot less work on it, a lot less water changes, and you'll find that your stability is greater long term. You're doing your tests, and nitrates are not as high as they normally are. Normally you'd be doing, say, like a water change every week or something, and all of a sudden, hey, I can go 2 weeks, I can go a month. It's not to say that we do need to be doing something with the aquarium. With that electrical charge, it does get worn away. So if we're just reading the tank, we do need to be understanding that the electrical charge, which is not on a test strip or in a liquid test, that is getting worn away. So we do need to replenish that somehow. But the overall goal is that we just hope to be able to be less hands-on, more sustaining, and that's best for long-term health. So I think that's basically what I got for the presentation today. What I wanted to do was open the floor up to any questions. If you guys were just thinking about something about your aquarium and wondering, or if you wanted to run by what you've been doing for overall care of the aquarium and see if that was good, I was going to leave some time for everybody to ask some questions. If no one asks questions, I'll just start making up things to talk about, because that idea of the balance and stability we can get into a lot. I was talking about light. I could tell you exactly why. Was I talking about light? There's lots of factors we can go into that I can tell you are either going to be affecting it on the oxidation side or on the redox side, the reduction or oxidating side. So if you got a question, now's a good time to ask. Let's see what's going on in here. Hi, Grandma. And also too, if you guys wanted to share your camera, you're more than welcome to. You can, there's something here in this Facebook Live where you can share the feed with me and even show me what you are looking at, and then ask that question as well. Cool. Thanks for bearing with me through that presentation. If you guys don't know, American Aquarium, our idea here is, yes, we have a retail store, and ultimately the bottom line matters, but the way that the idea of American Aquarium came about was taking professional information and putting it online right when the internet became a thing. So taking these professional experiences, the hundreds of applications, and then putting it out there, but also with a science-minded outlook. There's been a lot of research that's been done. There's been a lot of research that's been done, and then so what we are also, there's research that's been done, but also the experience led to a result, and then that research was done to say, okay, why did we get to that? And that's how we've come to some really grand ideas that we're now promoting in the hobby. We've been a leader in a few things, medications being one, UVC being another. Hey John, thanks for joining us. And I'll say fish food. We've also developed some fish food. What did I say? Medications, UVC, food, and then the idea of redox. We've had the privilege of not only working with hobbyists, but a lot of retailers, universities, corporations on setting up an overall balanced redox for a lot of aquariums. And why this ends up becoming important to talk about, yeah, it's just fun to kind of dive into the science of an aquarium. But really, you know, when you're putting money into these things, we want to see them succeed. And then when we're getting into fancier stock, bigger aquariums, this becomes more increasingly important. And it's really what's given us a stronghold in the industry, our little niche that we've kind of created for ourselves, and just promoting best conditions for the osmotic relationship for fish, yeah, plants, and even corals. And then we've been able to take this science and apply it to human health too. These things that I've been talking about, the redox, overall balance, is actually the same stuff that's being talked about in human health and cancer research. It's I don't know if you guys have heard, but people say, don't have too much sugar, it's going to rot your teeth out, or don't smoke too many cigarettes, you're going to get cancer. That same principle, these things that they're looking at to make them say those things, is the redox of our body. So that's why they're always saying, eat a lot more alkaline things, vegetables, and limit the oxidization. You guys, another way to think about oxidization is rust. You know, if we see rust on metal, it's that same process. This is something wearing away something else, and we're trying to combat it. Good. I'm glad. I know people are getting to watching these things on the TV, and definitely the world is changing about how we're digesting information. I think personally for me, I've been doing a lot more watching of education on my TV, which is kind of cool, and being able to do that through YouTube and Facebook is great. And now that we kind of have all these restrictions in the world now, being able to connect with people through things like this is great. And it fits definitely in line with our mission here at American Aquarium. We are a 100% online business, which is unique. And we've been able to build this business basically on the professional information, the articles and the videos. So yeah, we're real happy that people can digest this stuff anywhere now. But thank you for watching. John, what kind of aquarium you got going on? Well, actually, I don't even know if you'll be able to tell me on the TV. So, but yeah, thank you for sharing. So basically, this talk I was going over was something that I was pulling from on one of our websites called Fish Beginner. A lot of the time when I'm doing these talks, I always say, hey, there's a lot more information in the description below. So I'm just going to look over this real quick, make sure I cover everything. Oh, good. I'm glad you're able to answer back. Well, I guess I can respect your experience. You know, the things that I'm telling you now, I guess I'll say, so my role here at American Aquarium has been a little bit of everything, and then taking the information that my mentor, Carl Strohmeyer, learned from all that experience I was talking about, and then having him shed that to me for the last 10 years and being able to put it online. And then it's been nice because in my time I've kept a lot of aquariums also, and now I'm also running Southern Oregon Aquarium and Pond, so going out and actually maintaining. So anyways, my point to this is I look up to people that have a lot of good experience. 50 years is a long time to keep an aquarium, and it's definitely admirable. You know, when I started keeping an aquarium in high school, I never thought that it would turn into this and this higher level of education, and the things that, the science that goes behind it is quite interesting. So, okay. I can imagine if you're keeping aquariums for a long time, it's not always the easiest to do maintenance too. You know, I talk about these higher level ideas, and I sometimes don't even apply them to my own aquariums. I definitely apply them on the aquariums I service for clients, and that was kind of the idea about all this information online as well. Is if we could provide an overall healthier tank, it made the client happier and ultimately saved us time and money. So, anyways, need a good cleaning. That's funny. Brackish aquariums are an interesting thing, and you know, actually, I think our freshwater aquariums can be slightly brackish also, you know, and we're just not thinking about it like that. I think when people are thinking brackish, they're thinking of sodium chloride only, but we promote a lot of the other salts, so potassium, magnesium, calcium, which is actually more of what a brackish aquarium needs as well. So yeah, I think it's just an interesting point to, we should be remembering these salts for all of our aquariums. How often are you doing maintenance? Or actually, you know, one question I've asked too is, have you heard anything about that balling method and ionically balancing your saltwater aquarium? Right, a marine salt's gonna have all those elements. Yep, you're right. And we do sell marine salt here at American Aquarium, but it's a funny thing, it's the hardest stuff to ship, so it's actually just a convenience item that we keep. But we actually just keep it really because we want to promote salt for a freshwater tank, and then, you know, having that sodium for some fish. But having a quality salt, a marine salt, even for a treatment process, is really good to have on hand. Has all those important minerals. I don't know how the hobby really got stuck on that we just use sodium chloride. I see that often. It's people asking how and when they use it, and I don't know where they're even finding out that that's something that they need to be doing. But we only recommend sodium chloride usually for a treatment issue. There are some other reasons to use it, but most of the time just for treatments. So we got this really good in-depth article on American Aquarium. It's called Aquarium Disease Prevention. If you're looking for just a good place to start, this is for anybody. Gives you great ideas on what you should be thinking about before you start the aquarium, or now what did you have the aquarium going, what you can improve on for overall disease prevention. It goes over cleanliness, the filtration, circulation, UVC sterilization, correct feeding, correct water chemistry, lighting. I'll stop on lighting for 1 second. I think I started talking about it earlier and then kind of got off of it, but it is being proven now that lighting actually has a major role in the overall redox balance. Lighting can be oxidizing as well. So these brighter lights that people are using for coral or plants actually are wearing away that electrical charge on the aquarium as well. And the same principle for human health, which we say that 6500K provides some type of biological, you know, boosts our mood. Same goes for fish. So having a good source of that 6500K is important just for their health on how it can boost their immunity. It boosts their mood as well. That's an interesting science. Yeah, I definitely know that people are talking about magnesium being the most important, or it's something that can get out of balance, I think, is what's important about the magnesium. So having it, and then it's needed for the growth. If I remember correctly, it's as the plant is growing, it's using more of that magnesium, and then we might need to supplement it. But I've actually been servicing some really full developed reef tanks, and we rarely worry about the magnesium. If you're dosing a quality start from the beginning and then keeping that ionic balance, it has something to do with the ionic balance. If you get the ionic balance off, it drives that magnesium out. And so if you actually just have those quality starts from the quality salt from the beginning, I haven't been having to dose magnesium. And the tank I have in mind in particular is one of the biggest, fullest tanks that I know of in the area. I wonder if people are thinking that they have to dose magnesium because they're seeing that it's being driven out, but not understanding why it's being driven out. Yeah, people are definitely looking into redox. That's what I'm coming back to when I was saying, when you're spending a lot more money, this type of science becomes a lot more important. And you're right, the saltwater aquarium hobby drove us to look into redox, I think. And they were even selling probes. I got a redox meter sitting on my desk. I think though it's just that people are not understanding what's the right redox, and I don't even think that you could say that there is a right redox. I think more what we promote is that we need oxidization. We need that for the breakdown of the debris in our aquarium, but we didn't need to come out at the aquarium, but we also need to be adding those reducers. So fish that are not mainly from the fish that are mainly from marine environments and kept in fresh water are not living brackish water. With only some. Yeah, you're right, because it's not just sodium chloride that's making brackish water. It's those overall minerals. How are people keeping fish that are from a marine environment in fresh water? I guess you might be thinking of like mollies and stuff, where they can kind of like fluctuate back and forth. And yeah, you're right, if you were just to throw them in sodium chloride, if you were to just add sodium chloride in fresh water thinking that you're making a brackish environment, okay, near fresh water, right. Why sodium chloride gets, it's also an electrolyte, and it is an important one as well. The difference of it is the potassium, magnesium, calcium, they add to. The sodium chloride actually wants to like withdraw, and that's why I might be getting this a little off, but there's something about how it drives out the ions and speeds up osmoregulation. And so what we want to do is have a constant, stable osmoregulation. Something about sodium chloride speeds it up. Right. Yeah, we don't even promote ozone most of the time. Interesting story. A few years ago, we were working with Disney World, and they had all their aquariums set up on ozone, and they wanted to know if it would be practical to set up UVC on all of their quarantine tanks, but ultimately they wanted to see if they could be setting it up on their huge display aquariums. I can't even imagine the size of the sterilizer that it would need to be, but they had a really hard time keeping extra reducers in the water when using ozone. And they were also using ozone, pumping it directly into the water. To do it correctly, I'm pretty sure you have to dose ozone into some type of chamber and not let it be without, like, throughout the whole aquarium. But yeah, it it did add for a lot of problems, and we had a handful of questions on that. And it's just ozone is adding to that oxidative side, and so if we're not remembering those reducers, it becomes out of balance ionically at the electrical. The value of the aquarium is out of whack. I've said it a handful of ways. I can't remember if I said it on this video, but I've been promoting aquarium keeping as thinking that your water is actually a battery, and what we need is some type of alternator to keep that charged. And that's what the process is happening outside in nature, is running over rocks, rivers. That's the charge, that's the alternator. And so if we don't have that on our aquarium somehow, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, that's when it gets at the chemistry ionic level, that's when it's getting out of whack. A lot of people will be like, oh, my pH is right, my KH is right, but just a lot of people don't know that we need to be thinking about our water as like a car battery. I appreciate all your input, John. Thank you. So being in the hobby for 50 years, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of different information, or a lot of people saying to do the right thing, or has there been anything personally that you have found that seemed to really work for you? Just ease of care, like you're just thinking, man, that aquarium is taking care of itself. That's good stuff. Have you found anything like that? You know, actually, when it comes to saltwater aquarium, John, when we were servicing these, still even to this day when we're servicing them in the community, we won't even take a client on unless they'll allow us to put a UV sterilizer on the tank. We've found so much benefit to it, and have learned from enough experiences to know that the value, you know, a couple $100 sterilizer for such an expensive tank, it went a long way. So we don't even accept an aquarium to maintain anymore unless we can put a sterilizer on it. And I'm tempted to want to do it for freshwater as well, but I just, you know, there's a lot of reasons why people wouldn't and don't want to. It is an extra layer of aquarium keeping. I'll come back to a good recommendation if you guys are looking for some. Okay, so now I give you guys this information. What are we supposed to do with it? So the recommendation I have for freshwater is definitely look into a Wonder Shell. I'm saying Wonder Shell not because we sell it. I'm saying Wonder Shell because it's the easiest and has provided the most benefit, and that's why we like it. So the idea is that you put this block in your aquarium and it slowly dissolves into the water column, giving that benefit slowly. These oxidizers and reducers that I'm talking about, they can either be fast acting or slow acting reducers. Prime, for example, is a reducer that everybody's used to using, but it's a very fast acting reducer and also dissipates very quickly. So this Wonder Shell is a long lasting reducer that slowly leaches into the water as the water needs it, and then it's just a huge benefit with that slow constant. It's replicating as close to nature as possible, we think. Another way to do this is you could also have like a liquid reducer like Prime on a slow drip, but just having that block in there is easiest. There's also this block for saltwater that you put it in there and it slowly releases, and it also claims to slowly and long term stabilize the ionic balance. So for saltwater, we'll use the balling method using a high quality salt like tropic marin, and then use those blocks, those are from Sea Lab, and add those in between water changes, which is going to slowly keep that electrical charge boosted. And then of course, again, sterilizer. Well, John, if you don't got any more questions, we can check off. I appreciate you joining me. Appreciate everybody joining me throughout the thing. You stuck with it, I appreciate it. If you have, since you kind of stuck through the video, if you feel like you want to see something from us, or you're curious about something, or you have an opinion about something that you think is worth sharing, definitely reach out. I like to work with other experienced aquarists, but also just getting some more ideas generating and getting them out to the hobby. We've come up to a really steep obstacle in the hobby where now if you could pick up a camera and really just put out a huge amount of information, that type of education is becoming rewarded. So we're having to work really hard to keep our information that we're updating, but we feel is some quality stuff. We have to work really hard to keep that in front of people, and our goal is to keep that we want to not see misinformation spread and just make the aquarium process easiest, so that way we can promote the hobby. This hobby is shrinking. I've heard that more people are getting into it, but what I mean by shrinking is it used to be a growing, an exciting endeavor for industry leaders, and it's just not that way anymore. A lot of things are being pulled from the market, and there's a lot of regulations going in on things that are very beneficial, but these things people don't want in the hands of hobbyists. So it used to be that you could work with professionals and get professional things. Now it's that you are really limited on what you can get. And anyways, I think it's affecting the information that's getting around and how people are keeping for their aquarium. And we like to treat our fish like pets, and I think most people do as well. So we just want to see best health long term and not abuse of the hobby as well. Medications is one thing that's getting very regulated. And actually, there's some validity to that because people are just dumping antibiotics into their aquarium, and these antibiotics are getting resistant. And so there's not so much abuse in the aquarium, in the hobby. Our goal is to help by educating. If we feel like if professionals can come and guide people through the process, it's a quality source. So I'm glad to see that the local stores are busy during the pandemic. I don't know if I think I've seen that to be true for like Petco, my local fish store here. So we work hand in hand with them. We don't try to compete with them, being that we're just online. We allow them to be the local store and us be an online store. And I was in there the other day, and the price of everything is going up. And he kind of said it like this. He was like, man, I just spent about $1,700 and got the smallest fish and the smallest corals. And I was looking at what he spent all his money on, and I'm like, wow. And he was kind of regretting making that purchase. He's like, maybe I should have bought or paid my mortgage with this money. So yeah, maybe that is true, that people are just homeowners, so they're thinking about aquariums, but the aquarium local fish store, from what I'm seeing, is really struggling. And it's hard to keep value in live goods and guarantee those and have quality quality goods, and then provide a top level experience at a fish store. when we've got something like Amazon or just buying off the line. So I hope that to be true. We want to see all local fish stores succeed in the hobby. Right. Yeah, a lot of the states now, or I should say the countries, are regulating these medications and want you to go to see a veterinarian, which I don't imagine a lot of aquarists would do. I've got pond clients that most definitely would go take a prize koi to the vet and have them work on it for a few $100s. But these aquarium fish, I don't see that happening. And so what will likely happen is just we'll get poorer resources, and it just might be harder. I want to think optimistically and say that we'll still have what we need to be very successful in the hobby. I guess what we've learned professionally, what we've seen work, and then we're applying that because it made sense best for the clients and then best for the business. When these techniques and resources are being taken away that the professional uses, and then that professional who usually is distributing that information, they're just going to get less quality things to work with and then have to make it work. Yeah, definitely hooking up with other hobbyists is a great idea, and I wish there were more of that. It's hard. So American Aquarium's located next to a big city, but outside the big city, and even the big city that we're next to doesn't have an actual fish club. There's pond clubs, and I know they definitely are trading and swapping stories, and they actually bring in professionals or just really good experienced hobbyists, bring in a lot of good experience, so that's nice. And it's definitely a great resource. We have an aquarium society that's about 4 hours away, and I'll say that the thing that they really did well was the buying the trained in and selling the goods and stuff. I noticed that it was ran by enthusiasts, which I guess in this case, I don't know if I can apply it to everybody, it was just newer aquarium keepers, so they were just really happy, and I think they were doing a good thing, definitely. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm hoping that whatever enthusiasm and education is coming from even someone that might be newer to the hobby is getting to the other hobbyists in the correct way. I don't even know if I said that right. Oh yeah, you heard about that, huh? We actually sold out of that medication right when COVID hit. Everybody thought it was the stuff to get, and we had to stop sales on it, and then actually our wholesaler ran out of it. The price of it for our wholesaler went way up, and then we noticed even some competitors of ours were still selling it, but really for a high price. Here at American Aquarium, we kept the price the same. We had to put a big old thing on the website, this is not for human use, but yeah, it was kind of crazy that I guess actually what I should say too is the one that's in the aquarium hobby is not just the chloramine, it's mixed with pyrithamine, and so while that's not truly harmful for people, it was something that you also want to take with it. Hey Jeff, thanks for joining us. Good plants to start with? Free plants? No. This is what I'll say about plants. So actually all of them are really easy to grow, and I think it's a very important thing to get yourself into if you're in freshwater because it helps establish the overall ecosystem. I just released a full in-depth video about this on our YouTube, and it'll be releasing on our Facebook tomorrow. But I think what people don't know is that a lot of our aquarium plants are coming from a greenhouse environment, as in they're being grown out of water with unlimited resources, the sun, carbon dioxide, And by having these little resources, they grow. And this just makes sense for the wholesaler because they need to grow a lot of them. But then we're taking those plants, and even when you see them, say like at Petco, they're just being brought from the greenhouse and put into water. And the plant is now going to have to adjust. These plants are going to have the ability to grow underwater, but they have to adjust. So know that whatever plants you're going to get, as long as you have a stable environment for the aquarium already established, most of them will grow. But what you're going to see is the thing die off first. You know, it's going to want to dial back and get used to the new lighting setting and the CO2. I can't say that I actually have like a real specific species of plant you should look into, but I'll say that anything that you get that says easy or medium at a pet store will be good. Look into tissue culture plants. This is a good way to answer this. I like tissue culture plants because so it kind of bisteps that greenhouse environment. These plants are grown in a little cup under actual light, and so it's going to have an easier transition into the aquarium. And then they're also not going to have disease and pests on them, and you get a ton of starts. So for that reason, I think if I want to say what plant you should get, look into those tissue culture ones because you get a ton of starts and they'll grow up a lot quicker. Not have to die all back and then regrow. They just tend to be a quality plant and easier to adjust to the aquarium. I hope I answered your question. 2 people died from it. I know chloramine was used for some malaria. I'm not the disease expert here at this business, but I do know that medication was used for humans for some reason back when, and it was actually a safe medication. It must have somehow been misused why they died, because it was something that was being given to humans before, and that was a lot of the controversy about that medication and why we needed a new vaccine, because this medication had already proven some benefits for it. But they didn't really want to look into it. They wanted to look into developing something new. You're welcome, Jeff. I did really good not answering your question. I sidestepped it and I said it's preference, but look into tissue culture because I think you'll be happier with it. If you're thinking about red plants, that's something that people do. They really want red plants in the aquarium. My best success with red plants is having first a quality substrate, having a iron-rich substrate. Plants are going to uptake most of their nutrients from the root, and so if you provide good quality substrate first, most anything will grow. So find something though that has some iron in it. This is going to make the red pigment hold in the plant longer. Sometimes you'll see the red plants want to start to turn yellow, and that could be partly due to iron, so consider your substrate. But also if you were looking for those really red plants that you're seeing online, those really fancy aquascape pictures, they're able to achieve this by having a quality. Okay, I'll first say quality light. You need a quality light that's going to grow it, and then these lights also have reds and greens in them, and that helps reflect that color that we're seeing, so that helps. But these really vivid red plants that people are getting is done by having CO2, and this allows just for better growth of those red plants, which then you will see them really just like shine and be very bright. So yeah, if you're looking into red plants and you want to keep them really red, think about a CO2 supplement. And actually take a look at that video I just did, because there are ways to preserve the CO2 that's just bioavailable in the water, and you can get a lot of CO2 that way first. What else you guys got? Let's see. Laterite. Okay, I'm not familiar with that. I would imagine it's a mineral of some sort. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it was just a good iron source. Good. Yeah, as long as we got some iron in that substrate, anything that's iron demanding, it'll do. I think actually what's more important too is potassium. You know, these are the same minerals that I was just talking about for aquarium health, the balance of an aquarium ionically. You know, so these fertilizers and the minerals that's also in the substrate are these same minerals. And so that just goes to show you this electrical charge is a lot more important. This balancing the electrical charge is a lot more important than we know. But yeah, a lot of people are saying they get more thick, lush growth with potassium. I tend to just use a fluorite substrate, and that grows anything, and I really like it because I don't have to replenish it. If I ever feel like I need more growth, I can throw in some root tabs, and if I want to get fancy, I'll use liquid fertilizers. Let's see how we're doing on time. What time is it? We've been doing good. I set this presentation up just for a couple hours. I didn't know how many people would be asking questions. I definitely went over my presentation on how to balance an aquarium, what we consider stable or what is healthy, like just defining those terms for you. That's what I was really just trying to drive home is, okay, what does this balance word even mean? What does stable mean? What does even healthy mean? And so I was just trying to drive home the points of a balance at an ionic level. So definitely covered that presentation. If you have any other specific questions, let me ask. And I was going to say, of course, guys, we have so much more information on this. American Aquarium is an information provider first. I say that not lightly because what drives our website is the sheer amount of just good quality information. So if you ever feel like you want to go to Aquatic University and learn from a ton of experience, check out the websites. And then most everything on there was published by a team of people. So there's a lot of experience from multiple people. Check out the YouTube channel, which is me regurgitating this information from being able to sit behind the experts for the last decade, and then having my own experience running the fish rooms here at American Aquarium, running my own business at Southern Oregon Aquarium and Pond, and then just shutting that into those videos. So we have a lot more information. I wish I was better at these live chats where I can throw in a picture to show you guys. I'd show you a couple of experiments that we've done, which were one using minerals and how they affected the redox. We were using a chemical dye which stained the water purple, and then by using either a water change or those minerals, you could see the difference in how it eliminated those extra oxidizers. So we did that for minerals, and then we also did that for sterilization, where you could see the long-term benefits. It's quite interesting. When you just do a water change, you don't get out as much as you think, and it just stays there. While I'm just still talking, I'll go ahead and go into this one. So American Aquarium, we develop our own food, and we keep these principles of balancing aquarium in mind. This food we've developed personally, but also in conjunction with another expert who has looked at the fish biology very heavily, and we have come to create this really quality food. And I know I'm just throwing out a generic term of quality here, but we are getting a new batch of that in soon. So we order a large batch of that and then sell it throughout the year. and we are technically out of stock at this moment. And I know people are waiting for it. We are getting a new batch of it. If you're not familiar with the AAP food, first and foremost, it is a crumble. So the benefit to this, and I'll say, is every other food, flakes, pellets. These are sent through a processor and then cooked at high temperatures. And these high temperatures cook out a lot of the beneficial things in them. And then that's why they're having to resupplement them back in. Plus already using poor ingredients. So this crumble form, we're already using a quality ingredients, and then we chose not to get our food processed into a flake or pellet because we don't want to lose those essential things. So we dehydrate it, and we dehydrate it into a crumble form. This is great for a lot of fish. Sometimes it's not so great for other fish, as in like the crumble itself. It's a unique feeding thing. Like if you've got a whole tank of, I don't know, tiger barbs, you can't just throw in a handful of these things. You have to break them up and kind of get them into a more of a dust form and then throw them in. So that's the one con, but the benefit definitely outweighs the little bit more involved feeding experience. So, like I was saying, we developed it with that bioavailable ingredients, but also to not impact the aquarium on the oxidization level. We use whole menhaden, which is a protein fish, high protein, high digestibility fish. And we choose not to use krill because while that's a high digestibility and a very sought after ingredient for a lot of fish foods, it actually does something to the fish's brain psychologically where it starts a feeding frenzy because of how potent it is. And that's why the fish are really so attracted to it. It actually has a higher fat content than menhaden, and so the energy amounts that we get are much higher. We in this food are trying to conserve energy, so when we're developing the food, we are finding that a lot of the hobby is overfeeding, whether it be from multiple feeds or just that the food that they're using is so high in energies. They're so dense in these energies that even a little bit goes a long ways, and we're basically fattening up our fish for premature health issues. People get confused because they say, well, my fish are big, so that means the health is good. But we've used this menhaden because of just the overall digestibility. We don't want to we want to limit those energies, and then we're not going to go after that psychoactive response. For the herbivore food, it's made with kelp, peas, corn bran, which is an amazing ingredient we struggle to get because it's so good in its digestibility and its high amount of fiber that it's highly sought over for human consumption, and so it's hard to get. That was one of the reasons that we ran out of it. We're looking for that corn bran, and but we finally got some. The other great aspect of the food is the high amount of fiber. So we understand that the fish's guts have bacteria, and a lot of these foods will supplement probiotics to keep the fish to be able to pass the food. Well, just good old science says that if you have a good high source of fiber, quality digestible fiber in the food, it acts as that probiotic. So that's why we use that corn bran. So anyways, this is just a higher quality food that I wanted to talk about a little bit and say we're going to be getting in a good amount again. And we are exclusive on this food. We're not definitely the biggest fish food provider to the hobby, but we do like to say we have some of the most quality food, and comparable price. It's a great deal. Anyways, I'm gonna cut it here. I appreciate everybody for tuning into this video. If you appreciate the information, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you guys feel like it, do like, subscribe, share this video. these little efforts go a long way in boosting the video to get our mission out to people, so we really appreciate it. I'll try to do these live feeds, maybe say once a week or every other week. I'll try to do as many as I can. There's a lot of things going on here at American Aquarium and then Southern Oregon Aquarium and Pond. And I'm trying to get as much out as possible and help as many people as possible and answer as many questions as possible. I guess our idea has been that if we can get this information either in a written or a video format, we can then provide these to people and answer the most common questions that are asked all the time. If you guys need personal help with keeping your aquarium and you feel like me personally can help you in some way, I would be willing to do one-on-one consultations. Send me your ideas of what you think you need, and I will try to help whatever that may look like. And depending on how much help, we can work out some type of deal, okay? Alright guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me see if I can figure out how to turn this off. I'll talk to everybody next time.